Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Joe and Joe Weather Show. Meteorologist Joe Rayo and myself, meteorologist Joe Chaffee, and the Joe and Joe Weather Show, brought to you by OmniTrue Value Hardware, 1226 North Wellwood Avenue in West Babylon. 631-756-1125 is the phone number. OmniTrueValue.com is the website. And they have been open all through this winter storm. They've been opening up early in the morning. They've been staying open late at night so that you can get your winter storm cleanups done. Things are starting to calm down now, of course, and hopefully you've got your cleanup done. But just in case you haven't, they still have plenty of rock salt and all the great snow and ice melt products that are out there. So you can pick them up at OmniTrue Value Hardware. And in case you broke your shovel, they got those too. And again, 1226 North Wellwood Avenue in West Babylon. They are a local business. No better time than today to be supporting your local businesses. And I don't know about you, Mr. Rayo. First of all, I had a nice little half inch to an inch overnight. And I got to see what I always like about snowfalls is when you go out there first thing in the morning, right after daybreak, just as you're getting light and it's overcast and there's just a few flakes falling and the sky has this kind of bluish gray color to it, but there's this wonderful quiet and if you listen, believe I know this may not sound a little strange, but if you listen to the quiet you can actually hear a lot in terms of nature and the wind and everything else that's out there. It is my favorite part of a snowstorm that or the end of one anyway when that first thing in the morning look.
Well, it's kind of I can't really describe uh, my feelings and my wife's feelings when we opened up the window shade and looked out. And of course, yesterday we spent more than 4 hours snow blowing, scraping, getting everything down to, as best we could to blacktop. And you wake up this morning and you find that, hey, guess what? We've got another inch of snow that fell during the overnight. And so back out we went and spent another few hours today. But now it appears that, and I got it an hour ago, very light, but an hour
Yes.
ago it was still,
Yeah,
I
there
don't
were
know,
there were
like it
still
fall
actually
to
a
the
few. I
ground.
was kind of surprised. There actually had been a few bands around today. I thought they would have been done by now, but this pesky upper low just will not go away. And uh, well, anyhow,
It's over.
it's over and done
Yeah,
with. I'm uh, I'm seeing you on the screen, but I'm not seeing me. Can you see me?
I could see you.
Oh,
I could see
okay.
both of us. Yeah.
Oh, it must be the screen, the preview screen that I have. It shows you, but it doesn't show me. As long as
Oh,
both of
well,
us are on there, we're good. Uh, we demand equal time.
we uh, we are finally getting into a pattern that is certainly every bit of a wintry weather pattern. Next week looks very cold, and a
Agreed.
lot of people have been talking about, oh, the next storm on Friday, and oh, another one on Super Bowl Sunday. And take it easy. It's nothing like
Yeah.
what we've just gone through.
Well,
You know,
yes, and uh, they didn't really give it time. The odd thing is, Joe, this is really odd. Well, actually, it isn't. It just probably proves that most people aren't paying attention. But Bill Goodman sent me something last night that apparently uh, someone whose job it is to verify the models against each other to see which one is performing best. Uh, the new parallel GFS pretty much blew away all the other models in this particular event. And there's still this sort of reflexive action, this reflexive reaction to jump on anything the European has. And I have to tell you, at least going into the last event, the European had its a number of hiccups along the way where it had it, then it didn't have it, then it had it, and then it didn't have it. And then it finally sort of settled down. But the parallel GFS apparently was the best performer through all of this. So maybe when they make that the new operational, we'll see some improvement from the American side of the equation.
Well, as far as I'm concerned, Joe, hands down, the best model that performed for this event was the Nam.
Oh,
I
once it
took
got into short range, no question.
the
No
Nam
question.
was spectacular, especially in the positioning of the F Gen band, where we saw the
Yep.
areas of 2 to 4 inch per hour snow rates. It was just it just blew the regular GFS and even the European. I mean, I'd say hands down that the Nam was the number one. And I'm talking about the 12 kilometer Nam. The 3 kilometer was did okay, but you know, the 12 kilometer just flat out blew everybody away with its projections of what this storm was capable of doing.
Reaver is asking, where is the parallel GFS on tropical tidbits? If you check on models, it is there. The parallel GFS actually was down for about a day and a half. The last day and a half, it finally came back this afternoon. But you can find it also on Pivotal Weather, and it's labeled GFS V16, version 16, apparently.
Well,
Uh,
Joe, I'm on. I just went on Tropical Tidbits and went to Global and went to GFS Para, which I presume is the parallel run. And I've been seeing the same message for the last 4 or 5 days. There are no runs available for the GFSP.
Yeah,
So I don't
they
know what.
if you go to Pivotal, the parallel GFS came back this afternoon. So
Okay,
if you go to Pivotal and you go to you click on models and you look underneath GFS, you'll see GFS V16. That is the parallel GFS.
okay.
Not to be confused with the perpendicular GFS or the hexagonal GFS or the octagonal GFS, or any other combination thereof, the quadrangle GFS. So anyhow, I'm actually quite happy if it turns out. I'm still saying if, just in case. But if it does turn out that we don't get a snow event on Sunday, I'll be happy very much. This one took a lot out of me. I'm still
Oh,
not usually after going into a snowstorm, and then during the snowstorm, the day after, I'm just absolutely mentally wiped, and I'm feeling it tonight. It's just still a little bit on the downswing here.
well, there were a couple of things, along with the fact that physically, um, you know, Renata and I are worn out because we had 2 days of clearing away all this stuff, but also mentally, we were supposed to have an oil delivery and it was delayed because of the heavy snowstorm, and we somehow managed to, overlook the fact that we were down to literally fumes for our heating oil. We we were conserving. I think we had something on the order of like 7 or 8 gallons left in the tank before the snowstorm started, and our local fuel company said, "We'll get to you after the storm." We weren't going to do anything Monday or Tuesday, and they did get to us finally this afternoon. And the guy who, was pumping the oil into our tank, he, from a distance, where I had my mask and we stayed far away. But as I'm watching him pump, he's looking at me. He said, "You don't have too much oil in there. He's almost down to like that." I said, "No
No
kidding,
kidding.
no kidding." But we're back. We're back, and I'm anxious why we returned. I know you're like this. You like a cool house. I mean, we keep usually our thermostats anywhere between 62 and 66. We had just about every room over the last couple of days at around 60, just to try to conserve.
Yeah.
But it's nice now to warm things up a little bit. And that was one other thing that was on my mind was, oh God, the last thing. I learned something though. You could put diesel fuel into your oil tank. That'll work on a temporary basis
Well, I
in
guess
an
if you
emergency.
absolutely have to.
I did not want to do that, and I
Yeah.
said, let's hope maybe like you can see like on the gauge like it's hitting zero or getting close to zero. And I said, well, maybe it's like most cars when you hit empty or E, you still know you've got maybe another gallon in there to. work off of
Right.
whatever.
Well,
So
I never do that. I mean, I have always I got into a habit years ago of filling up my gas tank every time I went to work to drive into New York City and back. I rarely does my gas tank ever get under a half,
right.
which is why I usually don't have, knock on wood, because I don't want to have one now. Any major issues with my vehicle. Happy birthday, by the way, to Robert Russo, turning 65 to 66 today, and he hit super chat, so he gave us a birthday present. Thank you so much, Robert. Have a wonderful birthday. Enjoy.
Thank you very much, Robert. And speaking of special days, Joe, again we'll mention Friday for you and I, National Weather Person's Day.
Yes, it is. I'm just waiting. I am counting the minutes before before we get there. And of course, today we was today the halfway point, or was that yesterday?
No, today was at 4:49 p.m. From an astronomical point of view, we reached the midpoint of winter, midway between the winter solstice and the vernal equinox. So winter, from an astronomical standpoint, is half over. Of course, meteorological winter was half over back on the 15th of January, and shortly thereafter, not a few people on the chat board were declaring that this winter was all but over.
Yes. Well,
And how do all of you
right.
people feel about
You and I have been around long enough never to say make statements like that. Um, uh, Jace Bernhardt. This question came up. We were talking about this yesterday about consecutive hours of snow, and Jace Bernhardt of at WXJASE, that's with a capital J, on Twitter, posted this, and he said the data are a bit fickle, but it seems Central Park received 36 straight hours of snow from this particular storm, which sets let's call it a modern day record from 1995 to today. Sets a record uh, that's about as far back as he could look at hourly records that were actually available. So this tops a few notable storms, including the blizzards of 96, '03, and 2010. So we had 36 consecutive hours of snow reported in New York City. 31 was back on January 7th, 8th, 1996, the blizzard of 96. The February 25th, 26th storm of 2010, 31 hours. The December 19th, 20th storm of 1995, that was 27 hours. And the 25 hours for February 16th and February 17th. Also, Timothy Beltman pointing out that Washington, D.C. had 2/10 of an inch of snow, making it 3 consecutive days that Washington has had snow for the first time since 2004. So suddenly, a stretch that was utterly quiet, we seem to have come out of it with a big bang. And also, Joe, being that this all happened before the first half of the winter came to an end today. So for New York City, 17.5 now, I think it is, for New York City for snowfall, plus 10. So 27.5 inches for the first half of winter.
it? And that's
Which means, well, this goes to the notion that all it takes is one big storm, and you know what? We've actually had two double-digit snowfalls this winter, which actually is kind of unusual. But in the last 20 years, we've had a number of winters where we've had two 10-inch or more snowstorms. So
I mentioned I mentioned in the aftermath of our record-breaking November, we were about I think 5.1 degrees above normal. Did a little research, looked at all of the Novembers where we were 4 degrees or more above normal, and found out that very interesting. Usually, in those cases where we have a warm November, about 77% of the time, the winter tends to be below normal in terms of snowfall. But there were two winters out of that batch that ended up above normal. And the way they ended up above normal in terms of snowfall was that those two winters had two of the biggest snowstorms in New York history. One of them was the one we had in 2016, the 27 and a half inches. I
mhm.
mean, right there, that one storm was the whole winter,
Pretty right.
typically. So I noted, I said, well, if we're all the other parameters, all the other statistical numbers indicate that we were going to be above normal snow wise, and we went into January and nothing was happening, and people were saying, what's going on, all you snow lovers out there? And I said, well, if we're going to do it, we're going to do it with one big monster storm. And if this wasn't a monster that we just had, Joe, I don't know what is, but it certainly did tip the scales. We are now above normal snow wise here in New York City. And I've been saying that, the statistics say that we were going to see 40 inches or more snow this winter season. So how much do we have now? 27, 28?
In New York City, 28, and
20.
I'm going to
So we're only,
say,
we're
well,
only 20
and for areas just north and west of New York City, those numbers are well into the 30s.
So there you go. I mean, unless we suddenly had somebody up there turn the spigot off on the snow machine, we're within a foot of 40 inches, and it looks like we're going to make it 10 out of 10 cases where we have had a situation where when we get a lot of snow in December, that usually translates into a lot of snow for the winter season, and it looks like it's going to be that way. By the way, you think that 36 hours straight of snow was a tremendous amount or
I
an
know you're going to
unusual
talk
event?
about the Boston 100 hour.
That's right. That's right.
100 hours.
100 straight hours of snow. And interestingly, in 69, we had the so-called Lindsay snowstorm, which went pretty well unpredicted. And Mayor Lindsay got into a lot of problems for not getting the sanitation department out in time, and the New York City, especially Queens, was a mess for days on end. Boston saw nothing out of that storm, or hardly anything, and they probably said to themselves, "Boy, we were lucky. We didn't go through what New York City went." And it was just about 2 weeks later, February 25th to February 28th, 1969. Boston had 100 consecutive hours of snow. When it was all over, said and done, 26.3 inches of snow had been reported. Think about that for a moment. It snowed for more than 4 days straight in Boston, hour after hour after hour. And what makes that different than what we went through? We of course saw spurts on Monday of 2 and 3 and 4 inches per hour. This was not, you think about it, 26 inches, you divide that into 100 or whatever. The snow was coming down probably very gently, maybe a half inch or, quarter of an inch an hour each hour. But it just kept coming and
Mm-hmm.
coming and coming and coming. It's like you'd shovel away like 6 or 8 inches, and then maybe a few hours later, you'd have to shovel away another 6 inches, and it kept coming all this. And people were probably getting, if you thought you were going batty like I was and so many others, it's snowing again. What's
Yeah.
going on here? Can you imagine doing that for 4 straight
Straight
days?
days. Yeah, I think
Oh,
people were getting a bit antsy about it today, especially the snow removal guys that I work with, because they've hardly gotten any sleep. They finally were able to get some sleep today, so they are out there. And by the way, just a big kudos to all the snow removal guys, especially my snow removal guys that I work with, because they go out and they get very little sleep when snowstorms are going on, and they're plowing away doing the best that they can. And I just believe me when I tell you, because I talked to them all through the storms, uh, to update them on what's going on weather-wise, and they work incredibly hard, and so don't get too upset if they don't get to your street because they're out there somewhere doing somebody's. They're not just sitting around. So
no.
anyhow, let's do some weather here. And I thought we might as well start with the fact that we do have a new weather system that is approaching from the west. So we'll check out the watches and warnings, Mr. Rayo, and we do have actually some blizzard warnings up for parts of Iowa, winter storm warnings up into northern Illinois, northeastern Wisconsin, winter weather advisories surrounding that. In on the Michigan side, winter weather advisories also posted, and because of the wind direction, They're going to get some pretty hefty snows on the shores of Lake just off Lake Michigan in western Michigan, there on the lower peninsula, a foot plus from just south of Grand Rapids all the way up the peninsula to the very top. Snowfall amounts of about generally it's 3 to 6 inches, and in Iowa actually where they have the blizzard warnings, they're only forecasting 1 to 3 out of this. But it's due to the very tight pressure gradient that's going to be with this system, and the winds are going to be gusting to 40 to 50 miles an hour here. So I'm sure between the new that snow and whatever snow that's already on the ground, they're going to have visibilities restricted down to near zero. You can see snowfalls of a coating to a couple of inches that extend across Pennsylvania into northern New Jersey, the Hudson Valley, the northern half of Connecticut northward. So this is when that weather front arrives here on Friday. It's not going to be a big deal. A couple of snow showers or maybe a little burst of snow at the start Friday morning, and perhaps a few rain showers after that, and that should be it because there's not much with this. And then the front goes on its merry way, and it does appear, as we alluded to in the beginning, that uh, there just doesn't seem to be enough room for this next system, the one that's going to form on the bottom of that frontal boundary, to move northward. It's probably going to slide out underneath us, but I'm going to give it a couple of more runs before I make that official. Let's put it that way, at least in my mind.
You ever realize, by the way, I mean, we always talk about our lake effect, Lake Erie and Lake Ontario, providing, places like Watertown or Buffalo or Rochester. But you ever think about Lake Michigan? Lake Michigan, you can get hit from all different directions. I mean, those folks who live on the western side of the lower peninsula, as we're seeing right now, probably getting lake enhancement effect. But also, when the winds come straight out of the northeast, Chicago could get lake effect snow. And sometimes when the winds are howling out of an easterly direction, interacting with Lake Michigan, the folks along the Wisconsin side could get enhanced snow because of lake effect. It's a pretty amazing body of water, which, as I said, from all different directions can really influence the weather in terms of snow or wintry weather. And
Well, what
boy,
about the Upper Peninsula and northern Wisconsin, with the wind coming off Lake Superior, Sault Ste. Marie, Marquette, those areas, they get just get absolutely clobbered with snow up that
right,
way on
right.
a north wind or a northwest wind or a northeast wind. They get hammered. Uh, I don't know how specifically which wind does what. I haven't really paid too close attention to things up there, but we always see double digit amounts, and on the map tonight you also see double digit amounts up in that particular area. Our upper low has finally moved far enough to the east, but we're still getting some bands of clouds coming down from the north. This is a really large circulation in the upper atmosphere. The actual surface storm, see the brighter white clouds moving over Nova Scotia now and moving northward. That's the low center at the surface. It's beginning to intensify and move away to the northeast. But we still got to get this upper low to pull out, and it will, because the next system, you can see the clouds back through the plains and in the upper Midwest, is already moving along. So the kicker has finally arrived to get this thing out of the way.
Yes, punt it out of here. My God, I honestly, at 3 o'clock yesterday afternoon, I gave my final, what I thought should have been the final observation for Putnam Valley as far as snow accumulation. I said to myself, well, we get anything, it's just going to be like dandruff flakes, no big deal. I figured the last flakes would disappear by 8 or 9 o'clock last night, and no, it not only did we get a little burst of snow during the latter part of the afternoon. In fact, it was happening when we were doing the show last night with Bill Goodman. But then apparently another round of snow came by while I was snoozing away in the late night hours last night. And surprise when it's so frustrating though. You look out on your deck, and of course, wood is one of those colder surfaces. The first place that we usually see accumulating snow up here is on the deck, is on our wooden deck. And to see how hard we got rid of all the snow yesterday, during the day yesterday, and then wake up in the morning and just see it all all covered up again. no. And
Yeah, I
so
know.
thank God we finally thank God for the kicker and getting this stupid upper low out.
Well, it was
I've
better.
just about had it.
It was better moving that out than the concrete blocks that I shoveled yesterday. Here's the radar tonight. On the wide view, you can still see there's a few patches here, up and down the Hudson Valley and over Long Island and just off the coast of South Jersey. We've got some snow and some rain back through parts of the Central Plains and into the Rockies and on up into the Pacific Northwest, scattered around. The F5 weather radar wide, and now here's the close-up shot for this evening, and you see these very last bands. We must be on the westernmost edge of the upper low now, as it pulls away and goes goodbye. So at least the radars are going to get a break tomorrow. The surface map tonight, your low is there's one low center. This was this morning, a 988 low just to the west of Yarmouth in Nova Scotia on the new surface map at 21Z. Looks like there's one center south of Nova Scotia. By the way, it's in the 40s there, so it's not snowing. And another low that's up to the north in the Gulf of St. Lawrence, and this complex is going to just eventually get kicked out to the east. The WPC 7-day precip forecast map, they got a quarter to a half an inch over the next 7 days. So I'm thinking that maybe they're leaving the door open for the possibility of something happening on Sunday, or maybe later next week. There were a couple of hints on the Canadian model today of and the GFS for something maybe along about Tuesday or Wednesday, but how that plays out remains to be seen. And I will say on the 72-hour probability here of each of these colors, the lightest green is 1 inch, the darker green is 2 inches, and I have this set for the 50th percentile. So half the time it's above that, and half the time it's below that. So you can see at least into Sunday, this is what WPC thinks of this lead weather system that's coming eastward for Friday, and it really doesn't think very much of it, showing some higher amounts of 4 or more on east of Lake Ontario, up in lake effect land there. And of course, you can see the big amounts that are being generated here of 12 to 18 up and down western Michigan from south to north, and also looks like a patch there of 18 to 24. And I don't know what that is, what they call that little finger that sticks out there on the upper peninsula of Michigan into Lake Superior. I got to put that on my list. I want to go up there at least once before I leave this earth.
No, you've always said to me for a long time, the one thing that you'd want on your bucket list would be to just be in a spot and experience lake effect snows for yourself.
Yeah,
Uh,
I'd like to. I'd like to see it. Um, I don't really have any desire to chase tornadoes or anything else of that nature. Uh, it's just not my thing. But the lake effect snow, that I would really like to see. I think that would be being a snow lover, that's got to be a lot of fun to watch. You literally could see the walls coming in, the walls of snow coming in off of Lake Ontario, as a friend of mine that lives up there has described to me many times as I sit here envious of it. But one of these winters I'm going to get up there. Meanwhile, for
just make sure that you have somebody who can dig you out or get you out of that house or
yeah,
cabin after the storm is over.
yeah, I won't I
You'll
won't
probably
I won't stay
you'll
on
probably
a
be hearing you'll probably be hearing a German band. Da, 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 da,
yeah.
da.
Exactly. Oh, good lord. WPC, by the way, still has, Joe. I'm maybe because they haven't had a chance to update it off the afternoon model cycle, but because this was issued at 1648, so this was issued at 12 o'clock at noontime. I don't have that's their latest forecast here. They still have a 10 to 30% chance of at least 2 or 3 inches for Sunday into Monday. Now, they have it from Northern Virginia all the way up to Maine. I'm thinking off the afternoon models that this isn't going to be the case, but I don't know. Maybe they see something
When was
that
Valentine? When was that forecast made? Oh, wait a
Oh,
minute, I can see it
no, this
issued
was made
16.
this morning.
I see
So
it. Wait a minute, no, I see issued 1648Z. Is that
yeah, that's at noon today.
11 o'clock? Yeah, 11:48. All right.
Yeah, 11:48 noon today. So they didn't even, since they're prepping a forecast, this was probably based on the 0 and 6Z runs. So they didn't have the 12 and 18. They certainly didn't have the 18, and they were just barely getting their heads into the 12Z run. So I'm sure when this gets updated, we'll probably see it change significantly. And I would think that the area here is going to be drastically reduced, assuming that we don't wind up with anything. And one of the principal reasons, the principal reason is, in my never to be humble opinion, there's not going to be room. The block is building back, Joe, at a ferocious rate. I've pulled up the upper air for Sunday. I mean, you have uh, tremendous height anomalies, higher than normal pressures there in the Davis Strait. So the block is back, and this time it comes with a negative East Pacific oscillation. And you can certainly see the flow come straight out of northern Canada and the Arctic into through western Canada and then down into the Great Lakes, and in fact, it goes all the way down into the southern states. And some of that cold gets into the east. So now we do have that connection, that polar connection is there, but there's not a whole lot of room here. If you notice that the winds here in the east are pretty much straight west to east come Saturday evening, you need a little bit of a southwest, uh, edge to all of this. And uh, while there is a little tiny 50-50 low, it's very, very small there east of Newfoundland that moves out to the east. It moves out and you don't get enough ridging ahead of it. So if that verifies, that means that anything that comes out of the south is going to wind up getting suppressed to the south.
Indeed, and in fact, Joe, a lot of times when you see these frigid, bitter cold, high pressures zones pouring out, literally out of central and western Canada, enveloping much of the eastern United States, you sometimes see poking up out of the Gulf of Mexico a wave of low pressure, which in some cases sometimes pokes far enough north to move along the coast and bring a significant snowfall. But looking at NOAA's Climate Prediction Center probability outlook, very impressive for the 6 to 10 and the 8 to 14-day outlook. Just about everywhere except for the desert southwest, below normal temperatures. But here in the east, all the way from, let's see, from the 9th of February,
By
and
the
it
way,
goes
you
back
can
here
if
the
you want
8th
to
of
share.
April.
By the way, if you want to share that screen, you can.
Oh, okay,
You,
fantastic. I'll
you
do that
have
right
you
now.
have sharing
I have
capabilities.
shared capabilities.
Yes,
And
you
here,
do.
and here we go.
All
So
right, so
I'm
let's
going to,
let's bring you up there and get you shared. There
how's
you
that?
go. Perfect.
Can you see that?
Yep.
Oh, wait a minute, but that's the wrong, but those are the wrong, well, I can go here. 6 to 10-day outlook. Look at that. That's from the 9th to the 13th of February. And here in this zone right here, I believe is, yeah, 90% probability of below normal temperatures. Do you realize what this implies? This implies that this area is probably going to be seeing temperatures hard pressed to make it much out of the single digits by day and probably plummeting to well below zero at night, especially up here, like near International Falls and Duluth and Fargo, North Dakota,
Right.
Bismarck, North Dakota. I mean, like this is frigid air, but at the same time that's happening, look at the precipitation. I mean, like you say to yourself, wow, all that great cold air, great for making snow, but they have us below normal in terms of precipitation from the 9th to the 13th of February. He said, all right, well, that'll change on the 8 to 14. Well, really? Here's the 8 to 14-day outlook taking you to the 17th of February, and it's still very cold across much of the region. 80% probability still of below normal temperatures. And then look at the precipitation, dry.
Yeah.
So what the folks with the long range forecasters at the Climate Prediction Center are saying, yeah, it's going to get cold, but it doesn't look like there's going to be a whole heck of a lot to get excited about snow wise or even any kind of precipitation wise, at least in this section of the country. probably through the first half of February.
Well, well,
If you want to put it like
if the flow is like this, where it's this very broad flow, your cold air coming down and then moving into the eastern states, where you just primarily have this sort of westerly flow. Unless there's a little diver in there somewhere, it's basically weak. It's basically cold front after cold front with the reinforcements going by. So you need a little kink in the flow to bend it a bit more west southwest. So if you got something on the southern part of this,
right.
the northern part will still keep us cold enough, and you sort of you want to be on the near the border. But you want to be near the border of where the cold air is. That's usually where you're going to wind up getting snow events to happen.
And
But
you don't need a big storm. People say, "Oh, we need a big storm now."
no,
You
you
don't
don't.
need a big storm. You've got that broad, cold, high pressure cell. All you need is a little perturbation, so to speak, poking out of the Gulf and poking into that cold air, and you'll see very quickly all around that little perturbation a whole heck of a lot of stuff. In fact, that's how what happened with the '83 megalopolitan blizzard from Washington to Boston, 1 to 2 feet of snow. That wasn't a big storm at all. It was just a little disturbance that was pushing into a mass of cold air and producing all of those. And of course, since it was so very cold, you had a big puff factor, Joe, a very low
Sure.
density snow. Instead of 10-to-1 ratio, you probably had something like 15 or 18-to-1. So you really didn't need all that much in terms of precip to generate a whole heck of a lot of snow with that storm.
If you look at this in the long range, I kind of jumped out to days 8, 9, and 10, which oddly enough looked rather interesting. This is just sort of speculation here. We're not predicting anything, but take a look at what the upper air does here. Now you have your block up here, and what normally when you have a block, it's when the block starts to weaken. Remember we talk about the watching the NAO when it's negative, but then it spikes up toward that zero line, the neutral line. That's when we had that's exactly what happened with this storm. We had that negative NAO, that strong blocking. The blocking weakened enough so that this system wound up coming up far enough north, and we're going to have that opportunity again, uh, maybe uh, as we head toward, we're talking maybe after starting day 8 and 9. Watch what happens here. The block starts to weaken. The upper low that is sitting near James Bay goes out to 50 and 50. So you got a 50-50 low here, and it leaves. Now, we don't know if this is real or not or how it will really come out, but you've got the 50-50 low here, and then you've got this energy that gets left behind with a trough down into Texas. And at least on this run of the GFS, even though the surface doesn't, when you look at the surface of this, you're going to say, well, it doesn't really look like very much. But the upper air is certainly suggestive here. So this might be a window. If this verifies, if you can get this upper low to get out there in that 50-50 position, it is a very strong upper low. That forces all this energy that's left behind to dive and cut off again. So I thought that was a kind of interesting upper air, but again, we're talking about February 13th, 14th, 15th time frame. So that's almost 2 weeks from that. Well, yeah, that's almost 2 weeks from now, 12 days. But nonetheless, that might be a point where the block weakens enough that we wind up. Oh, they're saying no maps. Gotcha, guys. I'm sorry about that. Because Joe was, yeah, I switched him, so I got to switch back. So I'll do it again. No worries. We're all we're getting leisurely tonight. So again, here, watch
We're
how this.
tired.
Yeah, we're
We're
tired.
tired.
So watch again. What? There's your flow. Okay. So you've got your block right there. You've got this strong Canadian flow comes up from the Arctic all the way down into the eastern United States. And right there, this is for this weekend, you got a really tiny 50-50 low, which is why Sunday's system probably just doesn't have room to happen. That gets kicked out. Another little low forms on Sunday, but you don't have a lot of ridging here. The flow is basically west southwest. You're going to need, if this were a little bit stronger, that might allow for a little more ridging in between. That's Friday's system, by the way. That's Bill Goodman talked about last night, how it would be important with regards to its impact on Sunday. But now we have this big block, so your NAO is negative again. But moving through late next week, that block starts to weaken. The upper low that's in eastern Canada gets pushed out to 50 and 50 right there, just east of Newfoundland. And now you've got this trough that's left behind, and that winds up being forced to cut off just about underneath us, or just like this one did. So it's interesting that even though on the surface it didn't do anything, Joe, um, if these players, do move in a certain direction, and if the block does weaken, that might open the door for something to happen in the longer term.
I agree.
You
And
know. And by the way, good. I'm sorry.
no, I'm just saying that you're pointing out that this is happening like 11, 12, 13, and it's still like 10 days or more away. And it's always tough. Hey, look, what did I say a couple of days ago? If you try to go anywhere past 5 days,
Sure. Well, we know
you're
that
taking taking a chance.
yeah, we know that what we're looking at is basically hazy. We can't really see it clearly. And then just moving along through the rest of this run, it does look cold pretty much right through. Moderates maybe slightly toward, no, even at the end, it's still cold because we're still on the edge of that trough. It hasn't quite pulled out yet, and you still have an upper low in Hudson Bay that's getting ready to drop down again. So the pattern has suddenly gone from the strange, strong blocking pattern that didn't let anything happen through the month of January to one that is perhaps the opposite. We've got the cold. The East Pacific Oscillation is forecast to be negative much of the time over the next 2 weeks. So we'll have to see if an opportunity presents itself. I find that, Joe, we don't often go 2 straight weeks without seeing a weather event of some kind. That would be pretty unusual. I won't say it's not it's impossible, because every once in a while, the minute I say that, it's going to happen. But you gotta. There's enough here. And in fact, look at the surface. By the way, the GFS does actually do something with that trough back on days 9 and 10. Well, let's run this through on the surface on this run. And I also want to go to the icon model because that's the only one that's still holding on to the possibility of something happening Sunday. But here's your front for Friday. No big deal. Rain showers down in the Gulf. The front kind of stalls out. A wave comes out from there. Again, not enough lift to bring it up the coast. The trough is very broad, so it slides out underneath us. We turn very cold for next week for the start. Then it looks like we have another a low that goes to that on this run actually cuts to the lower lakes. It'll probably be a primary that goes to our west, and it'll try to redevelop on top of us. But after that, this is what it does with respect to that whole scenario that I just described, where it brings up this low from the northeast Gulf and then just shoots it right up the east coast into the Gulf of Maine in response to all that energy and all that action going on with the upper features and the low going to 50-50 and the cutoff coming in behind it. The long shot at this point because it's so far out in the long range, but it's one of the ways that something could wind up happening. And then, of course, after that, we've got some more chances, I would imagine, with cold air still in play. Now, the icon is still holding on for Sunday. It does still have the system from the south coming far enough north and clipping us with some snow here. You can see it also coming out of the northeast Gulf and off the southeast coast. Brings a little area of snow right up along the immediate coast to southern New England and then out Sunday evening. Doesn't look like it would be any big deal, but we would probably get something out of this if this were correct. And then it's cold and dry after that. And the reason is the icon is holding out the possibility. I think it's probably better if I look at this on the North America view because we got to see what's going on out to the east. So here's your little tiny 50-50 low right there. Right, whoops. So I guess what the icon is saying is that this is a little stronger, and if you look at it's subtle, but it's a little bit sharper, that shortwave trough that extends from the lakes to the Carolinas. A little bit sharper than the other models, and maybe that's why it brings the wave up. But uh, I would. I'm expecting the Icon to go flat with the other models since the other ones are flat and really not showing anything. That's my prediction. So that the Icon will finally give up the Ghost tonight when it runs.
Does anybody ever look at the Japanese model?
No, we only look at the
No.
JMA when it's you're absolutely in sheer desperation. The chairman has hit super chat tonight. Um, oh, okay. He says he was at the hospital. He was doing his COVID runs at the hospital tonight, and he was talking to a doctor about this show. And the doctor said, "Oh, you're the chairman." Oh, good Lord. You know what, Scott? You're becoming infamous across the People's Republic of the state of New Jersey. Oh, Lord, have mercy. And thanks for the super chat hit, by the way. So, uh, again, I will wait until tomorrow to give up the Ghost as far as Sunday is concerned, and then we'll see what the models do for next week. Like I said, the Canadian has something for Tuesday, but and I don't want to disparage the Canadian model because it really did very well. It did very well in the early stages with this last system, so I don't want to knock it. It did a fairly good job. So maybe it's given us a clue. We'll see. We'll know tomorrow. We'll know a little better tomorrow.
On the chat board, Gary Citro talking or referencing the extreme cold that'll be hitting the northern plains and especially the Dakotas, mentioning the Raccoon National Convention in Bismarck, North Dakota. But I think he's a little off on that. It's not the Raccoon National. It's not the Raccoon National Convention. It's the Raccoon National Cemetery in Bismarck, North Dakota. And I
Yes.
think, and I think Ralph had told Norton that if he became the Grand High Exalted Mr. Grueller or the chairman of the Raccoons, that he would do everything in his power to get Norton buried at the Raccoon National Cemetery in Bismarck, North Dakota.
Oh,
It's a cold, cold place to be buried,
yeah. They
to be
probably don't
sure.
do a whole lot of burying in the wintertime. I'm sensing we're having a
Yeah,
little
the
bit of
ground is just so hard.
some audio interferences coming on. So, all right, let's
Could be the road.
let's. I guess we can wrap it up tonight. So, thanks for those of the for the two super chat hits tonight. Thank you very much once again. Happy birthday to Robert Russo, who's a regular on here, and also the chairman for hitting super chat tonight. And 294 viewers to close out the show. We were in the 300s, which was really good. It makes
Yeah, I think
me,
everybody, Joe, is just like worn out.
yeah, you get like that. Exactly. 106 likes tonight, so at least so far. So we're happy about that too. Okay, the Joe and Joe Weather Show is every night is brought to you by our friends at Omni True Value Hardware, Long Island's largest rock salt source, which came in handy with this winter storm, and also everything you possibly need to help you in your winter storm cleanup, whether you're an individual or you're a crew. You're a snow removal crew or you're a snow removal company and you need stuff, head out to Omni True Value Hardware. They have the best. They really do have the best prices in town. 1226 North Wellwood Avenue in West Babylon. They service the entire tri-state area, and their telephone number is 631-756-1125. They're just north of the Southern State Parkway. OmniTrueValue.com is the website. So I guess we'll be back tomorrow night at our usual shopping time, 7:30 Eastern. Does that work for you, Mr. Rayo?
Works for me. I don't know where I'm going to be. I'm going to be here. Where else
Okay,
would I be at 7:30?
exactly. And the same goes for me too. Okay, have a great night, everybody. Thanks again, and we'll see you tomorrow. Good night.
Good night.